Today we're going to talk about this custom Jamis Renegade. Jamis released a new Renegade this past year, and we brought some frames in to build them up. We put this together into last summer, put some miles on it through the fall. I'm going to share with you what our thoughts are on the bike. First, we're going to talk about the frame. We'll go through how we have it set up. Probably not the build that you'd build it up with right now. We'll talk about our wheel tire setup, kind of the whole setup. We'll talk about who the bike is for and what we think about it. Let's talk about the frame. The new Renegade follows some of the trend that's out there, going longer, a little taller stack on the front end for a lot of these new gravel bikes. One of the issues I have for that from a fit standpoint, this is on a lot of the bikes. I can talk about this too when we do some reviews on the new Bianchi Architects as well. You'll see a lot of the gravel bikes that are out there are either going very, very racy. Think Cervelo Aspero, a Time 80HX45, Bianchi Impulso. Those are more on the racy end of the spec as far as fit and geo. On the other end of the spectrum, you have bikes like the Salsa Cutthroat, which is getting very mountain bikey with drop bars. And then you've seen my old review on the 9er RLT9 RDO, that it's kind of a middle, very neutral. Where does the Renegade fall? The Renegade falls toward that mountain bikey side of it, but not all the way there. Where I see the Jamis Renegade fitting is it's not Salsa Cutthroat, but it's for those people that the Salsa Cutthroat was enticing for them from a comfort level, the way the bike fit, and its all-around capability, but didn't really want to go all that way. They weren't ready for mountain bike tires, and they weren't quite ready for that gravel bike that felt a bit mountain bikey. The Renegade gives you some of that same fit and feel of that Salsa Cutthroat without going all the way there. It's still keeping you in a roadish gravel bike feel. It's pretty cool. I kind of like it. At first, I wasn't sure what to expect out of it. In my first ride, I was expecting to not like it. I thought maybe it was going to be a little too long and I wasn't going to like how it steered and rode. I was wrong. When I got home from that first ride, I was like, this is a good bike. So I'm 5'10". I generally will ride a 56 frame, and what I'll tell you is the stack on the 56 is very generous. That's your height up here. And then as those bikes are getting longer, that bike starts to feel like a little bit of a big bike. So we set up a 54, couple of reasons. One, I know I could ride it. The stack height is still very generous on it, so there's no fit issues with me on that. The overall length of it, it's a little bit longer. And my kids are 5'8", 5'9". They're riding a lot of gravel, so we can kind of share the bike. As it turns out, the 54 fit me really, really well. I would say if you're 5'10", before you go straight up and blanket, say that you're going to fit on a 56, you should definitely sit on a 54. And here's a couple reasons why. If you look at the seat post we have on here, this is a zero offset seat post. If you look at a stock build, I'm looking at a steel framed one over here. It comes with a zero offset seat post. These bikes come with shorter stems on them. We have an 80 millimeter stem on this, but this 54 would normally come with a 70 millimeter stem. So if you look at the effective top tube of these bikes and then take into account that you're probably going to end up running a zero offset seat post to make that work in a shorter stem, if you are 5'9", 5'10", and go, hey, I'm going to ride the 56 size that I always do, you may find yourself in a pickle when you try to shorten that up because you're already running a fairly short stem for what a drop bar bike would normally ride. Some general stuff about the frame. It has your 3 mount points on the fork, so you can put your fork packs or whatever you have on it. That's pretty convenient. I like those Ortlieb fork packs where you leave the mount right on there and then the bags lock on and off. This bike has the down tube bottle cage mounts above the bottom bracket. There's 2 bottle cages that fit within the frame, and then there's also the bolt-on mounts on the top tube for your bolt-on top tube bag. There's no rack mounts within the seat stays of the bike, but you can use the Old Man Mountain rack on these, and Jamis has the part numbers for those on their website, and you'd use one of the Robert Axel kits to mount that on this bike. So you can still put a rear rack on it. We're just limited on your options for those rear racks. The bike does have the mounting points that if you wanted to put a fender on it. As far as cable routings for the frame, they all go into a little cutout in the frame on the very top portion of the top tube that has a little plastic insert that's bolted in. The cables all run in there, so you can route them which side you want, drop them into there, then your front derailleur cable housing runs out of a little pocket on the back side of the seat tube that has a little grommet for it, and your rear derailleur then runs out of the top of the chainstay in the back. Pros and cons of this, a lot of the new frames are going to the integrated headset style. This one, if you're riding a lot of gravel and you want to service your headset, you can service the headset without pulling all the cables. I think we still need to be making bikes like this. The bike is spec'd to fit 50mm tires. And that brings me to the wheels and tires that we have on the bike. We've got a set of Head Emporia GA Pros, and these are a set of 45mm Challenge Strada Bianca tires. I really like these tires. I'll do a video sometime about gravel tires and my thoughts on the variety of gravel tires that I've ridden. These tires measure almost 48mm set up now. I would say if you were running 50mm tire on here, it's going to be pretty tight. I don't know that I would run the 50mm tire in a muddy event, especially if it was an aggressive 50mm tire. There's plenty of clearance between the seat stays and the chain stays, and within the fork, the tight point for 50s is going to be on the back side of the seat tube. As far as drivetrain goes, this is an older 11-speed GRX drivetrain, but we've got it set up as a 2x, so it's not a drivetrain review. This is not a drivetrain that you'd probably go put on one now because we have 12-speed stuff, but this is one of the drivetrains that we'd been riding. We took it off of one of our old bikes that we set up for somebody with a 1x, and we decided to just move it to this bike. When it does come to drivetrain reviews, our 15-year-old actually still likes riding a 2x on the gravel. Pretty sweet bike for a 15-year-old, right? Anyway, so this is your 2x11 Shimano GRX 800 series stuff, equivalent to like Ultegra if it was pure road. This is your 11 to 34 tooth cassette on it, Easton EC90 carbon crank. It's a really, really light crank. We just have a press fit bottom bracket in there. As far as our fit up on the bike, we just have a standard aluminum seat post in it right now because we had an extra one laying around. We've been doing some saddle testing and trying some different test seats out. So actually we've got one of our test saddles on it right now. These are just some standard Easton aluminum AX handlebars, some fun yellow tape. Not a lot of people into yellow tape, and we had some overstock of it. Looks super cool on this bike though. Matches the little yellow lines on the Apadura bag. General thoughts on this bike? I like it. It's a good bike. I would say it's that pendulum swing. It's at the one side of it, leaning toward that mountain bikey feel of bike, but not going all the way there. It's a very comfortable bike to ride. It rides really well, and being 5'10" on the 54 with an 80mm stem on it, with 0 offset seat post, it's a very comfortable ride for me without being too upright still. I like it. Our 15-year-old has put some miles on it. His comparison of this bike, so he spent some time on a 9er RLT. He likes this bike. He said the same thing. He's like, it's a good bike. As far as the tire clearance on the frame, yes, there's generous clearance for 50mm tires on all your seat stays and your fork. I do think there's a little bit of a miss on the back side of the seat tube when it comes to fitting a 50mm tire. Like I said, these are 45s that measure out at about 48, and if it was a muddy event, I wouldn't want to run any more tire. So we built this one up custom from the frames that come in black. It's basically a matte black with some gloss black on it. And then Jamis, of course, has all of their stock builds. We've had some of those in. The really nice bang for the buck build is the one with the copper tone color on the frame. That is the mechanical GRX bike, but has some carbon wheels on it. That's a pretty good bang for the buck bike. With all that said, we're pretty happy with these bikes. Glad we brought them in, and I will do a review soon too, or at least it's on the short list. We got a lot of bikes we got to work through. The Renegade steel frame, the S2, and that's the S2 is their nicer steel frame. I think that is going to be a very, very popular bike. We brought a size run of them in the shop, and we're in February, and I think we'll have to do a reorder on those before spring. So, but I'll do some review on those S2s. This new Renegade, it's a solid bike, and I think for a lot of people, this is going to be one of the go-to bikes in the shop. We had somebody in yesterday that was looking at, they came in for a Bianchi Architects. We were kind of going back and forth on a couple, like doing some fit between the bikes, and then we put them on a Renegade, and out of the box, it fit like a glove. And they're going with the Renegade. If you got any questions on these Jamis Renegades, you want to build one up, you've seen some of our custom videos. If you haven't, look back through our library of custom bikes. A lot of them are 9ers, but now that we can get these frames, we can build them up in this. There's also the stock builds. If you like one of the frame colors on the stock builds, we can bring one of those in as well. And as long as I kind of have a line of sight on what I want to do with the drivetrain on that, we can also do a custom build off of one of those. Any questions, any feedback, anything you want to see us review, hit us up, leave it in the comments. Give us a thumbs up, and thanks for tuning in. Later!